Opp Talks. Yeezy season is approaching. I don't care whatever you guys are wearing right now. We got the Jesus is King vinyl. It's got some black stuff on it. I honestly like it. We'll call it marbling. But look at that beautiful blue vinyl. 33 RPM. Every hour seller. Follow God. Closed on Sunday. You my Chick-fil-A. Coming down water. God is. Sleepers, hands on, and Jesus is Lord. Guys, chill. That's a beautiful vinyl. That's going to be in the collection for quite a while. It came warped, though. I just went up to Idaho, and I had like a 6:30 alarm, and I ordered that the night before. I was like, oh, hopefully it comes in time, because it said it was going to be delivered at like 4 in the morning. And I hear this, guy walking up, just freaking stomping in his Timbs, coming up my walkway. He's on the phone with his baby mama. She's like bitching at him, talking about whatever. And then he literally takes my vinyl record inside of, a square thing and just throws it at the fucking door. And I hear, boom! And it's like 5 in the morning. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? And then you hear that ka-chink. He takes a picture of it and he's like, sorry, baby. Keeps on walking. And I look out and it's just this D1, basketball player. Guy's like 6'7". Oh, I hate that I just said that. Guy is like 6'5", 6'6.5, walking down talking. And like, I'm not going to tell him he can't do that, but I did leave him a bad review. That's about the whitest thing that you could do. I didn't know I could feel that white until I left a Amazon driver review. And I said he was on his phone. And honestly, I do not care about him because my shit's warped and it's got weird black stains on it. He's probably eating his, Raising Cane's chicken fingers all over my shit. So, anyways, I was going up to Idaho that morning. So it was actually kind of blessed because I didn't set an alarm. I do this weird thing where I just kind of risk it with Siri. I'm like, yo, set an alarm at 6:30. And it either sets it for PM or AM, and it's almost always wrong. It's almost always at the wrong time. And so, but I like to risk it. It's a nice adrenaline rush. So he actually helped me out. I just like complaining. I think that's what a lot of people like doing nowadays. They just like complaining. And so I had my Idaho trip scheduled. I'm going up to Boise. I'm going to find a potential place to live and also check out the school. I had like 4 or 5 appointments with, leasing agencies to find, a spot that's right for me. And then we also went onto the campus, talked to, construction management. And that place is so beautiful. That's how New York City is the city that never sleeps. That's the city that sleeps. That it shuts off at about 11. But like that's the exact type of vibe I need right now, So we go and we catch a flight over there, make it up. My flight was canceled, which was terrible. But what are you gonna do about it? So I just kind of accepted it. Flight got canceled. My friend took me there. I didn't know that it was canceled until my dad called me and I was stepping out of the car and I was like, oh, sweet. So went back home, whatever. Took the flight back. Beautiful flight. I always like the people that I meet on flights. It was 2 flights. It was a layover. And, one thing that I learned this trip, I was reading C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity. Mere Christianity is a remarkable book. It is a book that not only systematically breaks down each type of religion, but comes at it from a point of exact logic. Like C.S. Lewis's brain works in a way that is so computational. Like it is like a calculator. It's like this doesn't work. This isn't gonna work with. Let's give an example. So dualism is a type of religion. And it is the theory that there's one thing that's all good and one thing that is all bad, right? And they're constantly fighting. It's kind of like yin and yang. But the problem with that is that the law of what is good and what is bad has to be made outside of those two gods, meaning that there's a higher God. And also, one thing, like there needs to be one singular God above it, or a Godhead is what we talk about in Christianity. One thing that's interesting about this book is that you can be good for the sake of being good, like walking out of Walmart, seeing that lady with the little tin can and, giving her a buck or two. But you cannot be bad for the sake of bad. People who are bad are doing so because they have something that they see as good from it. Like being cruel is convenient to somebody. Nobody's bad for the sake of being bad. Nobody's wrong for the sake of being wrong, which is impossible. We don't see that anywhere in our life. So to claim that there's a presence, even the devil is getting something good out of it. He is the ultimate rebel. And a lot of people believe that the devil is this equal and opposite force to God. But let's remember that God banished the devil to the earth. And, it's kind of weird because it's like, why did God banish the devil to earth and then throw his most prized possession onto earth? And that's a question that I've always had. And through this book, I kind of figured out it wasn't God who banished us to earth. It was us who chose the devil. Each and every single time I do something wrong, I'm choosing, the wrong thing. I can't blame God. I can't be like, God, why did you make me do this? God gave me the free will. He works so hard for us to have free will because any type of love or joy or compassion that is worth anything comes from free will, or else we'd just be an extension of God if he was just controlling us constantly. So I thought that was interesting. On both of the plane flights, I was reading this book called Mere Christianity, and my favorite verse so far in it is Christianity tells people to repent and promises them forgiveness. It therefore has nothing, as far as I know, to say to people who do not know they have done anything to repent of and who do not feel that they need any forgiveness. A lot of you may be like, I do not need help. I do not need to change. I'm doing well on my own. And for that, I would say you're far stronger than me. You can do this all without me. But for the people that know that this thing that they've been trying is not working out, I keep on running the same thing over and over again. And that's what I realized. And I realized that I needed a doctor. I was sick or hurt, and I it was spiritually sick and spiritually hurt, and I was missing something. So any new Christian that comes to me and is like, hey, I'm trying to be a Christian, don't focus on all right, God is doing this for Harlan or that. Focus on what you're missing. Focus on what you need. Do you need anything? And see if God is providing that. I'm reading this book in the air. We land in Salt Lake City. It's my first layover. And I look down at my phone and I see this text message. Now, let me get this straight. I did something stupid. I wasn't thinking. I was maybe not thoughtful. I forgot something. And just to be vague and not say any names, that person that I affected took it into their own hands to do something petty towards me, to do something that directly affected me, directly costed me money, directly was gross, it was childish. And I understand that, what I did was stupid and not thoughtful, but to look at that when I'm running 10 minutes to, make it 2 miles across the Salt Lake City airport, I'm immediately running. I just threw on my jacket. I'm sweating, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, God, that person sucks. That person sucks. I would never do that. It reminded me of this one time when I was a kid. There was this kid that, was bullying me. He said he was going to poop in my mouth in elementary school, and I was like, bro, that's it. I'm throwing away your food. And I threw away his peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I took it all, and I dumped it in the trash. And then I put his, little lunch box back in the crates. And anyways, lunch rolls around and he looks in his lunch box and he has nothing. He has nothing to eat and he goes hungry. And eventually, towards the end of class, the teacher calls me up and was like, hey, listen, I had to give, little Johnny my lunch because you threw away his lunch. We looked on the cameras. We saw that you threw away his lunch. And we're going to call your dad. And so my dad, has to get off work early, which, you're getting an ass whooping if if he has to call off work. And he shows up, he listens to the teacher's story. I wasn't able to talk at all. And we get in the car, and I'm like, are you mad? And he's just like, I am so disappointed. And it turns out the kid was an orphan. I didn't know he was an orphan. And I went out of my way to do something like very petty, to do something that directly hurt him. Maybe what he was saying was rude. Maybe he was attacking me, maybe whatever. But like that feeling of being vengeful and wrathful towards somebody, it ended up backfiring because I felt terrible. I felt like shit. My dad made me feel like shit. He was like, dude, you just threw away a kid's lunch. He doesn't even have a mom or a dad. And so I was like, thinking back to this, and I was like, I learned this in elementary school. Somebody does something to you, you turn the other cheek. We look at historically, that has always been the thing. You look back at Jesus. He says that if somebody slaps you, turn the other cheek. He says, listen, what do we do to our enemies who wish bad on you? And I'm sitting there and I'm typing out this thing while I'm running in my mind. And I'm like, this person sucks. This isn't a Christian mentality. You're not doing the right thing. And then I realized God is talking to me when he says, love your enemies. Do good to those who do bad for you. That's what he's saying. He's not talking to the person that doesn't know that they've done any wrong. He's talking to me who knows the verse by heart. He's talking to me who's read the verse and gets in front of a camera and talks about it. And, quite frankly, I shouldn't be asking anything of you guys if I'm not willing to do it myself, if I'm not willing to walk the walk. And so I'm sitting there and I have this realization that God is talking to me and not them. And immediately I'm like, what would God want me to do? I already sent the what the actual hell, message. But then I sent another one and I was like, you know what? I forgive you. So we get into this huge blowout argument, and no matter how many times I said I'm sorry, no matter how many times I apologized, no matter how many times I said, listen, if you're in the mind state where you're going to do something like that towards me, there's no point in us arguing. No matter how many times that happened, I wasn't forgiven. And it was just met with more malice. The thing that is godly, the thing that, Jesus tells us to do is crazy. And I'm doing it on a small scale. Imagine Jesus is getting captured by the Roman guards and one of the disciples cuts off his ear and Jesus says, guys, no fighting at all, and heals the guy's ear. That's the type of love we need to have for people who do bad for us. Now, we need to walk with people who are going to do good for us. That is no doubt. But constantly separating, people and being like ostracizing them. I'm not trying to make more of a disconnect. I'm trying to lead by example. I'm trying to practice what I say. And then when I text, I forgive you, they get so mad. And I don't mean it in like a I'm high and mighty way. I'm meaning it in like a, listen, what you did was clearly wrathful. What you did was clearly attacking me. I forgive you. Can you pray for me? I'm sorry that I was, inconsiderate. And so I'm moving on. There's no point, no argument about, any small little thing like that is worth, ruining my day, ruining my trip. So I continue on with my trip. And it's funny, Idaho has no snow right now. Like past 7 years were like record-breaking snow. So we're up there. It's beautiful, beautiful place. And it's seeming like it's going to be like a very immersive learning experience. I'm very happy because it is going to be a new change of lifestyle. I'm not going to be bumping into the same people, saying that I'm going to go and do stuff and then not really doing it and kind of, it's going to be a new standard and it's going to be a new group of people. And I'm really excited about that. So we wrap up the whole entire trip. And today I had one meeting with like a counselor and then I get on the plane home. And I make it through security. I'm sitting here and I love people watching. I'm looking at everybody. I like to make up like a little story about like who that person is. So we get through the security and I sit there, I'm waiting for the plane. I eventually get on the plane. A lot of people also rush to get into planes. I never understood that because I'm not trying to rush into the thing that's like, I'm going to die in. I'm not trying to rush into, I wait until the last zone. I don't get on the first zone. I'm walking down the aisles like, please be a hot chick. Please be a hot chick. And, I'm calculating out. I'm like, that's 10 away from us. Please don't put me next to those people, And, of course, I get put next to Shrek and Fiona. And, I'm I'm just like, okay, they're coughing a bunch, making a lot of noise. And I'm like, oh my God, these people suck. Like, they smell like cigarettes and whatever. And I'm just sitting there, just trying to read my book, go through the whole thing. Like, they were nice enough. And eventually the cart girl comes around and I get a free drink. And then I asked, like, how much is that salami and cheese? Because I was low-key starving. I was hungry. And they said $8. And I was like, nah, that is really expensive. And no joke, this woman sitting right next to me whips out her card and she says, anything he wants, he can have. Anything he wants, he can have. And I think to myself, me with the Christian podcast, me, Harlan, I'm the first one to judge. I'm the first one to sit there and write her off and be like, she's this type of person or that type of person. And maybe I'm better because I look a different way or I treat myself a different way. I'm okay with a lot of other sins that she probably isn't okay with. But I point out that one sin that she does or that one thing, and I make that her whole personality. And I'm sitting there and I'm making up all these misconceptions in my mind. These things that aren't true about her. These things, I created this person inside of my mind who she was not. And that's the type of person I am. I want to turn on this camera more often and tell you guys that is the type of person I am. And that is disgusting. That is disgusting that I sit there, okay, there wasn't a lot of inches between us. We were all pretty packed in there. But, a foot away from her, thinking terrible things about her, talking to her. And God sees that. God sees that. God sees that internal dialogue, and that is a child of his. And I can't even hold my tongue. I can't think good things about her just because of, my seat being taken up a little bit. And, I'm upset at myself because I think to myself, I would be the one to pay for somebody. I would be the one to, do something. But I'm not even willing to give this person a fair chance. And so God bless her soul. She, bought me some salami and cheese. But also, I'm taking a look at it like, if she gave me a little bit of time, or if she said that she was, Christian or wearing a cross, it still wouldn't change the way I thought about her. But $8 changed the way I thought about her. That shows what I worship as well. So I'm on this thought process, like I need to be not as judgmental. I need to, sit there and accept this woman for who she is, because she is a child of God, whether I like it or not, whether she likes it or not, I gotta lead and be better with this type of stuff. So anyways, I'm working on that. I just wanted to share that with you guys because, sometimes I can be so judgmental, and I don't know why. I think it's from a place of insecurity. I think it's from a place of I need to be better. I need to jab at somebody before they can get a jab at me. I don't know why. I don't know what specific instance that is. Maybe I'm not ready to share a specific instance, but for some reason, I just do these gross things, and I think bad about somebody that doesn't deserve it. You guys probably clicked on this video or looked at this like, oh, he's some type of way, but I hope that we can just accept people for who they are. I can accept her. She got off the plane, went and smoked a Newport cigarette. Like, it's whatever, like, I'm not going to sit there and pretend like I have all the answers, because I'm struggling too, dude. And if I wasn't in the position I'm in, with the place that I was born, like, why was I born in America? Why do I have this family? Why do I have all these opportunities? Because I'm blessed. And maybe she wasn't blessed in the same type of way as me, so I'm not going to sit there and judge her, A lot of people, there's this trend of, like, looks maxing with Clavicle or whatever his name is. I don't really care, because the whole idea that you got to be, like, bone smashing and doing all this, everybody works so hard on the outside, decorating this outside, this with so much muscle and, cracking their bones and getting double jaw surgeries and augmenting their body to look okay, but their inside of their soul is just like mine. It's disgusting. The way that I thought about her is disgusting, and I can't be doing that, and especially when I get off the plane, when I got hit by that other person with something petty, I immediately start to think like, oh, what you're doing isn't right. What you're doing, there's no accountability, and I need to hold myself accountable, and you guys need to hold yourself accountable too. I see too many people sit there and say like, oh, it's because of this reason, or it's because of my parents, or it's because of this, this environment that I've been placed into. There is no healing for somebody who doesn't think that they've done anything wrong. C.S. Lewis says this: there is nothing in the Bible for the person that doesn't think that they need to repent. I need to repent for what I did on that plane, or what I thought, because it is disgusting that is my first nature. That's the first thing I'd run to is, oh, am I going to be able to beat up everybody on this plane? Like as a guy, that's like a common thought, I'm like, oh, could I survive? Like I could probably fly this plane. Like what? Am I insane? I can't fly this plane or beat up everybody on this. Like she would kick my ass, honestly. She would just rip off the top of the Newport pack. She would light all 18 cigarettes, puff them one puff, and then just freaking Mario hammer me with her hand. Okay, that isn't... Anyways, I'm just going into funny I'm rambling. I'm sorry, guys. I learned so much that trip. But I want to recognize, I know it may not look like it, but I'm getting better. And the reason why I'm getting better is because I know that I'm hurt. I know that I'm missing something. I think I'm going to be the best podcaster of all time because I know I'm not. I know deep down inside I'm not. Let me explain that. The guy who walks in to the carpentry studio, and gets the internship job and is like, I know nothing and I want to know everything, is going to do a lot better than the guy who has a little bit of experience and is like, I know everything. I'm going to do really great. I know that I'm doing terribly at this, but each time I'm going to improve a little bit. Maybe we should take a look at some of these calls, honestly. Somebody texted in to the hotline. You guys can call or text in at 909-784-5119, or hit the description in my YouTube or Instagram. You can write in on a Google form as well. He said, yo, what's up, Harlan? I'm really struggling with addiction right now. Like, I'm in rehab, but it just doesn't feel like it's helping at all. I firstly texted him, there's some great 3-step plans that work. I haven't personally used any of them, but I know that Theo Vaughn's like an alumni at like most of those. He is a huge advocate for 3-step programs. But I texted him some questions that he might want to answer. I said, what's the hardest part of what you're dealing with right now? He said the hardest part and what I'm dealing with right now is feeling alone. I think that for a young man right now, that's pretty status quo. I'm not trying to discredit you at all, but I feel like this time period is so debilitating as a young man. And I understand you and I feel you with that. I know, definitely it can be hard. I said, how has this been affecting the parts of your life you care about most? He said it's affecting my success story. And I just like to say that this could make your success story. The success could be getting over this. But I mean, Jesus hung out with the people who were beat up by life, who were feeling alone, Maybe they didn't have pharmaceutical drugs that had specific chemical compounds that wire your brain in a certain way so you're addicted to them, like opioids. But I would say that this could make your success story. Following through with it, I know it's going to be hard. I'm not trying to discredit it. I said, what is one small change you wish you could make, even if you're not ready yet? He said, one small change I want to make is to be there for my family, not my family being there for me. Man, that is also really poetic. I feel like that speaks to most men today. I feel like I can feel like a burden a lot of the time on my family. I'm not trying to talk a bunch about me, but I really understand that. And sometimes it feels like your struggles can be inconveniencing to your family. But I hope you know that your family isn't sitting there looking at you like that. Like you're everybody's got their stuff. You just got to deal with it, and you'll be that much better for it. I said, what's something that you could do to support yourself? And he said, I can journal every day. And I think journaling is some sort of expression, some sort of way to get out your thoughts is very helpful. You'll definitely be in my thoughts and prayers, and I'm really proud of you. I think that you're doing really good. And I think that maybe that might not always be said at the right time, but I hope right now is a time that, you need it. I know that you're doing good. And I know that you're going to do great things. You just got to get over this. I have this thought that, I'm going to summit like a mountain metaphorically. I'm going to get to the top of whatever problem or whatever goal I want to have. And I'm going to realize once I get to the top that I had the strength in me at the bottom. I was capable of it. And I just didn't realize that. I'm going to doubt myself the whole way up. Just one more day, just one more time. It's a violent struggle, this game we call life. But it is so fruitful.
It's pretty interesting that you interview Jessica Reed Krause. You're very young, so you have to be careful about stuff that she says on there. But saying that when Epstein is put in a cell with Nicholas Tartaglione or Tartaglione, that he's not dangerous. Do you think that makes any sense? You know that Nicholas was a quadruple murderer, right? He's a mafia coke killer in New York. And I don't know, the thing, I guess her son or daughter, I don't know the name that was said, but, it's cool what you're trying to do, but you're too young, man, to get involved in that. So just, she has an interesting story, too, don't get me wrong. She's an interesting person. She has some high-level connections. And if it boosts your show, I guess it's cool. But maybe I'll reach out to you again.
Brother, I just want to say thank you so much for calling in. You sound like a beautiful soul, and I really appreciate your concern. I think, I did a decent job with it. I don't know Nicholas Tartaglione personally. She does. But I also have faith in the justice system. If somebody ended up getting accused of something, I haven't personally seen too many people get falsely accused or convicted. I don't know anybody that's happened to, but maybe she's able to tell something I can't tell based off of talking to him weekly. And that's kind of the whole point of this show, is that I will sit down with anybody. I'll sit down with my ops, like whoever it is that wants to talk, I will openly hear them out. Now, that doesn't mean I'll always agree with them, but I think it's important that, I am an open mind. I'm a sponge. This environment, this world is teeming with life, and I want to experience it all. I want to look at it with, an honest view, try to actually uphold the truth, try to uphold Jesus, which I love more than anything else. It seems like Nick did have some stuff, though, that, was concerning. I don't know too much about it. I know Jessica's son. That's how I was able to get in contact with her and do the podcast. I'm not trying to say I have any hard stop opinions, other than the ones that I hold in my religion. I feel like that's my passion. That's the thing that I want to talk about more than anything else. And I also wouldn't discredit me for being young, I understand that, I may not look as well-seasoned as any of these people in government, but I think I'm exactly the breath of fresh air, that we need. And it seems like all the young guys get assassinated. I said that the best way to go is to get assassinated by the government. That means you were probably doing something really right. We got Abe Lincoln, we got JFK, we got, now new people. She is an interesting person. I think that some of the stuff that we talked about could have been inflammatory, but I didn't want to waste my opportunity, You don't get an opportunity with somebody, that has that big of a following and that much of a deep look at current day events, You want to talk to a news reporter about what they've been doing. But yeah, I'm personally not on any side with Nick Tartaglione, or I forget her name, Jeffrey Epstein's wife. I don't know. We talked about that. She said that she wasn't, that she should have been taken out already. And I looked into that a little bit after, and I'm a little bit questioning, okay, she's doing sex trafficking and stuff, if she is guilty of that, which I have faith in the justice system, that's kind of a gnarly thing, and I think that deserves serious punishment. But then again, maybe she knows something that I don't know. We didn't talk on it like too extensively. I wish we could have looked at some of her notes. This is our last and final text. I've been looking around and having some self-doubt lately about myself and if I'm doing the right things and making the right decisions about my future. I've got some big decisions, or what at least seems like big things, going on soon since I'm a senior in high school right now. Anything you recommend for that kind of stuff, because I admire your view and outlook on life, to be honest. God, dude, senior year, that brings me back. I'm an unk now, so this is outdated. This is like half off advice, but I may not know the current state of, high school right now, but what I do know a lot about is self-doubt, looking at life, thinking like, am I going to do the right thing? Am I sober in this decision or this next step that I'm going to do? And it's a scary time, it's senior year, and you kind of know that the Titanic's crashing. You kind of know that like all of these people that you care about so much and all their opinions are going to fade away after this. You're going to go off to college, or at least they're going to go off to college. I think one of the most important things you could do for yourself, if you have the means to go to college and you understand what you want to do, go to college 100%. But there's other ways to make money. There's other ways to do stuff. If you want to, find who you want to be, do internships, apply it anywhere, try to get yourself and your foot in the door on life, and try to work your way into places that you don't deserve to be at. Text people. Like me personally, I'll shoot a shot on a guy that has like 150,000 subscribers, and like sometimes they respond, sometimes they don't. You guys need to take that risk, because it is senior year, and next thing you know it, I see guys that it's been 3, 4, 5 years after high school, and they're still sitting around ripping bongs, not focused on their life. They're getting fed all this goy slop. They aren't present. They're asleep at the wheel, and they're going to crash. So I would say, like, firstly, for the self-doubt part, listen, everybody else is going to doubt you. Everybody else is competing with you. Every single other person, is wanting you to not do good. There's only a few people, like maybe your family, few close friends, that want you to do good. And even if that, they don't want you to do better than them most of the time. So you got to understand, you cannot be one of those voices doubting yourself. Let me ask you a question. Who do you hear the most? And the answer is yourself. And if you're constantly feeding yourself this negativity, I like this quote: you're not what you think you are, but what you think you are. And so if you're feeding yourself, this poison, you're never going to grow. Secondly, I would surround yourself with as many people that are older than you, more successful than you, more handsome than you, more tall than you, better at basketball than you, people who are better than you in every single way. Because if you start surrounding yourself with people that are going to keep on going in the same routine, I promise you, you will not be as great as you're meant to be. Find a mentor or a podcast you like and listen. It doesn't need to be this podcast, but find something that you can always rely on for some sort of knowledge as well. And lastly, I would say be present, because you're the richest man on the earth to the guy that's 30, to the guy that's 40, to the guy that's 50. You have wealth, you have youth. And all you need to do to capitalize on that youth is to be present. Be like, I am awake right now, I'm in my life, and I'm able to do something about it. And don't get wrapped up with a girl, don't get her pregnant, don't do any of that bullshit. You will ruin your life. I promise you that. There's no hope for a man that tries to find happiness in a woman, And I think a lot of women agree on this, because it puts a big burden on a girl when, you get into a relationship, you're a year in, and you realize that the guy doesn't do anything besides you, His favorite activity is hanging out with you. His favorite person to talk to is you. He bounces all of his ideas off you. And she's the source of your confidence, and you won't do anything without her. Yeah, bro, just focus on yourself. You're already in a good spot. I see right now that you're thinking about your life. That's better than most people do. And because you're thinking about yourself, because you're thinking about your future, I think you're going to do great. Just be there, be present. And with that, we're going to wrap up the video. I just want to thank you guys so much. This podcast is popping off. Everybody's been so supportive. I appreciate all the people that write in, all the people, that send out love, people who like, comment, share, whatever it is. Please keep on doing that because it really, really helps motivate me. Guys, I'm here to stay. This has been Opp Talks. Praise the Lord. Peace.